Hi all. This session is going to be on database applications and database users. So database applications are normally categorized under two different architectures. One is the two-tier architecture and the three-tier architecture. In a two-tier architecture, the application will be on the client machine and the client will invoke the database system which resides in the server machine. So that will be two-tier architecture, the client and the server. The client will have all the applications and all the storage and retrieval process will be carried out in this server machine initiated by the client. So this is called as the two-tier architecture. Coming to three-tier architecture, apart from the client and the server, you have an interface in between the client and the server which is called as the application server. So the client will have only the applications and it will not have any direct calls to the server. Instead, it will contact the application server, and the application server usually forms the interface and it goes and access the database system which resides in the server machine. So if that is the case, it is categorized as the three-tier architecture. So in a two-tier architecture, you have only two persons involved. One is the client and the server. Client directly hits the server. And in a three-tier architecture, you have three things. One is the client, the interface application server, and then your actual server. So your client cannot hit the server directly, but it can access the database system only through the application server in a three-tier architecture. So this is how the two-tier and three-tier architecture is organized. So in the left hand side, you have the two-tier architecture which has the client and the server. So the client takes care of the user as well as the application, okay, and it passes on the calls or the queries through the network and it reaches the database system directly, that is the server directly. And coming to the three-tier architecture which is displayed on the right hand side, the client will have the user and the application client alone, so which cannot hit the database system directly through the network, but it accesses the application server through the network, and the application server is going to call upon the database system for responding back to the client. If that is the case, it is called as the three-tier architecture. Now coming to the database users, you have four different types of database user. The first one is the naive users, or the tellers, the agents, or the web users who actually make use of the application interface for getting the data or for making a query. So they are going to just make the interface to the application. So they are going to make use of the application interfaces. So they are called as naive users. And then comes your application programmers who actually develop programs or write programs for accessing the data. So all these application interfaces which is being used by the naive users will be developed by this application programmers. And then comes your sophisticated users or the analyst. So the analyst will be on top of your programmers. They will not be writing application programs, but they'll be doing some kind of analysis on the data which is being stored in the database system using several query tools. So they make use of the data. So you can note down here, the naive users also make use of the data for just taking up the data. And the application programmers, they write the data actually, because they write the application programs and they actually write the data. And coming to the analyst, they are also going to just use the data but for analytic purpose, not for just using. They are going to use the data for analytic purpose. If that is the case, they come under sophisticated users called as the analyst. And then comes your database administrators. They are also going to use the database but for administration work. So they will be taking care of granting privileges or the authentication, integrity. So everything will be taken care by the database administrators. So these are the four different set of users who make use of the database. So the naive users will directly go and contact the application program, okay, and from that they'll go to the query evaluation engine, and the query evaluation engine will answer their queries. In case of application programmers, they'll go to the compiler and linker and they'll create the application programs, okay, and they'll make up the DML queries, Okay, and then this DML queries will come on to the DML compiler and organizer, and then again it goes on to the query evaluation engine. And coming to the database administrator, they actually interpret the data, so they will be making use of the DDL interpreter, and analyst will be making use of the DML queries, and then the DML compiler, and then the query evaluation engine. So these are the four different set of database users. Thank you.